So let us begin with the latter part of our program, a program with a conversation that gets to the heart of what drives opportunity in our communities, the strength of small businesses. Our next session, Stronger Together, Mobilizing Public and Private Investments in Small Businesses, brings together leaders working at every level of the ecosystem, from research and policy to finance and entrepreneurship. Our panel includes Dr. Sylvia Gonzalez, co-director of research at UCLA Latino Policy and Politics Institute. Dr. Gonzalez leads the Economic Recovery and Entrepreneurship Project, which examines how small and micro businesses, particularly Latino and women-owned, build resilience and drive local economies. Her work connects data, policy, and community voices to shape equitable economic growth. Our next panelist is Andy Navarrete, Executive Vice President and Head of Global Enterprise Affairs at Capital One. Andy oversees the company's regulatory, communications, and community engagement strategies and serves as the chair of Capital One's foundations. He is also a driving force behind the firm's commitment to inclusive leadership through its HOLA resource group for Hispanic and Latinx associates. Joining them is Luis Talamantes, CEO and owner of Buddy's All-Stars, a fixture in the sporting goods industries for over 4 decades. A veteran of both the U.S. Air Force and the Fire Department, Luis built a Buddy's All-Stars from the ground up, continues to mentor young entrepreneurs while leading with integrity and teamwork and innovation. And moderating today's discussion is Isabel Sami, reporter with the Los Angeles Business Journal, who covers business policy and the intersection of entrepreneurship and community development. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Sylvia Gonzalez, Andy Navarrete, Luis Talamantes, and Isabel Sami.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. That was a windy lunch, right? All the women look very nicely windswept. The men who have hair, all very nicely in place. So excited to chat with you guys today. It's been, so nice getting to know you guys, and I'm so excited for this discussion. So, jumping right in, you all have such interesting backgrounds, but it all comes together nicely to talk about how when cities prepare for, global sporting events like this. And so often the focus is on the venues rather than the small businesses and those partnerships that the city can have with them. So how do we make sure those investments extend beyond the venues to build an ecosystem where small businesses, residents, and local community advocates can benefit? Andy, we can start with you.
Sure, and thank you to Aspen Institute for including us in this panel. Very excited to be here. I'm actually going to maybe reshape the question a little bit to say the intersection of venues and small businesses, I think, is one that is inextricably linked, and so they don't have to necessarily be competing priorities. I'm a native of Washington, D.C. By the way, with so much South Texas representation, I kind of felt the need to say that, shouting out my East Coast brethren. But there is a, in Washington, D.C. in the early 90s, there was a huge controversy over the building of what became MCI Center, which is our basketball and hockey arena. And one of the groups that I represented as a pro bono client was the D.C. Historic Preservation League, and there was a faction within that group that was adamantly opposed to the building of any arena whatsoever. But there was another faction, I think, that was thinking about this a little bit more long-term and said, what can we leverage out of this? So it's not about opposition, it's about leveraging the opportunity. And so, the negotiations began to make sure that it wasn't just about building a sports arena, it was about revitalizing the entirety of a neighborhood. And so there was a 50% requirement to do housing, and there were affordable housing components that were included in that as well. But then also a real focus on building retail outlets within that community for small businesses. Interestingly, one individual who kind of, sort of read the room, knew where this might be going, who took advantage of that was famous Hispanic chef Jose Andres. And so at the same time that this negotiation was taking place, he placed a bet on this neighborhood, assuming that this might be a good opportunity. 8 restaurants in that neighborhood later, 40 restaurants in total later, and now a proud partner of Capital One. Jose Andres has built an unbelievable empire. But it started with a dream, and it started about seeing the opportunity beyond the controversy. And so when we're sort of thinking about ways that LA can really make something of this notion of sustainability, this notion of thinking beyond the event, this notion of thinking about the ecosystem into which you're building these venues, all of that is a critical part of the equation.
I think for us, this is an opportunity to really challenge the narratives about Latinos. We often think about Latinos as labor, but we don't think about our contributions as artists, as small business owners, as other professions. And so I think the sports that's happening now, these investments, I think there's that opportunity to change that narrative, really highlight the creativity that we bring to not just the labor market, but to the broader economy. And then from a research perspective, we often work in silos. Like I don't get to talk to business owners like Luis, or I don't get to talk to capital all the time. And so I think it really creates an opportunity for us to be in conversation, to be able to pinpoint the needs of our community, so that this opportunity, which is a once in a lifetime opportunity, really, we're able to benefit from that.
For me, it's a little different. We have a sporting goods store. We're not retail oriented. We're institutional based. So when we have the opportunity to do this, it comes down to how can we pre-plan what we need for the marketplace that's coming to us. What can we provide for the services for the people who are going to be here touring the community. Part of that is, being able to provide the uniforms that they're wearing, their replica jerseys, whatever it may be. From that standpoint, we carry all the major brands, and we carry the brand-to-brand Nike, obviously. So if they're allowed, and you can build bridges with them to let your local community organizations and I guess small owner shops, let them sell the product, they could really benefit from that. I mean, they could really do well for that. You have to plan for it. You have to have the resource for it. You have to have the capital for it. With Capital One, the way I work with them with their cards and stuff like that, it gives you that opportunity to do that. So from my standpoint, if you could just end up building bridges with the manufacturers of the key components of you see it as the Super Bowl, you see it as the FIFA, you see it the World Cup. I see it as uniforms. I see every team out there has a uniform, and somebody here is going to want to buy it, especially in with the Latino community. They all want to buy it. We have a soccer store in U-Haul, and we get visitors every week trying to buy the product, and we're always trying to keep it in stock and sold. But the opportunity for the retailers in the area, if you could get those bridges built, so those people who are going to carry the product, let them sell the product, it'd be very beneficial for them.
And do you guys have thoughts on how the private sector can play a role in making sure the investments are sustainable and equitable?
So, I was excited to hear Ray from PNC talk about the completion of their 5-year community benefits plan as part of their prior acquisition. Capital One is on the other side of that equation. We closed the acquisition of Discover a little earlier this year and embarked on a 5-year, $265 billion community benefits plan. And a big component of that is figuring out how best to kind of invest in communities, and in particular communities of color. So for us, a big portion of this, $45 billion, is being committed to community development lending. This includes a long-standing and very successful business we have in LIHTC-supported affordable housing, but also in the New Markets Tax Credit Program. And in addition to that, $600 million committed to CDFIs, and I know we're going to dig a little bit more deeply into CDFIs in a bit. But one of the things that Ray said really resonated with me, which is that CDFIs and local organizations are oftentimes that critical last mile of the equation when you're thinking about the actual delivery of services to small and local businesses. We can't do this from a national platform without thinking about touching down in each one of the communities in which we operate, in each one of the communities in which we want to invest. And so you have got to find the local partners that are part of the equation. Two of those partners are here today, Inclusive Action and TMC Capital. So thank you for the work that you are doing and will continue to be doing with us. But we're also supporting organizations like the National Association of Latino Corporate Asset Builders, or NALCAB, which was one of our negotiating partners for the CBP, the Opportunity Finance Network, which operate both at a national level, but also with hundreds of affiliates across the country that can be sources of delivery of capital.
We had the opportunity to speak to over 1,600 small businesses in California in 2023. A lot of the stories that we heard from them, and these were telephone calls that we made, was around the need to focus on the very small businesses, the micro businesses. So we know for a fact that Latinos are driving small business growth, but it's the very small businesses that are driving that growth. So if you think about women, about 80% of the businesses that women are starting are self-proprietors. So the tiny businesses that don't employ anyone. And so I think there's an opportunity there for private investment to support that segment of the small business landscape, aside from women, but also, the micro businesses. And then the other point that we've heard is around disaster preparedness. In LA, we've gone through the wildfires recently. There's an opportunity there to really think about how do we build resilience for our community so that we are not being reactive, but instead being proactive. And I think private capital has an opportunity to do something there as well.
First, I thank you all for letting me be here. That's sort of new for me. But on the other part of it is that when I'm getting the views from everything I've heard in the morning until I'm hearing it now and so forth, it's a view that's so far above me. You're talking about, you're in outer space looking down and seeing what's happening. I'm in the ground working. I'm the guy that's actually getting to do it and pushing it along to make sure it gets done. He goes, I would tell you that everything that we talk about here is great, but we need something for the people who are actually doing the work to understand what you want or how you can help them, because it doesn't make sense to me to have all these dreams and all these thoughts and not know how to get to them or not know where to go to get them. I just, that's I came up with, if you want to do something for me, arm me, okay? Make me unbelievable piece of ammunition, if you will, but I need the bullets to go with it. You need to tell me how, where, when, how do I do these things? Who do I do them with? Where do I go get this information? Please help me out. And if you can make it easy for me, can you imagine how much you can simplify it for everybody else? From all the different things that we go through, I'm the guy that's doing the work. You're the ones that are dreaming it, but I'm the one making it happen. So it's a completely different mindset of when I look and listen to what's going out there and what's going on. And I tell you something, I thank God that I was allowed to be here, because the information that I'm getting is unbelievable. The information that you have, the power that you have is unbelievable. And I don't know if you know that. I'm listening to you and I'm awed by it. It just, so just, I'd say keep doing what you're doing. We're going to keep fighting the fight, but whatever you can do to make it easier on us, and you can make it simple, and you can relate and build bridges to the manufacturers that we work with and have them buy into our world, would be really well received. Thank you.
Louis claimed to be nervous backstage.
Still nervous.
I think you're crushing it, Louis.
Yeah. Louis, to expand on that a little more, as a small business owner in the sports economy, when there are these major events coming, we got FIFA, we got the Olympics, there's such a focus on LA, and people do want to support small businesses in that. What has been the biggest challenge in kind of scaling your business ahead of these events? And, are there ways that we can help?
Like I said, is building a relationship with the manufacturer is going to supply the goods to all the teams, because that's something that everybody's going to want. When we do it, we have to plan in advance. Any Nike, let's take them, they like you to pre-book everything, right? So you have to pre-book it so they can plan it out, so you can plan it out. And that's for all the major manufacturers, and they do that. If you could be allowed to carry that in those brands coming in, it would be really valuable to the Latin community that have sporting goods are going to end up buying it. You're going through it saying how much they buy. You know, how much they want to go to that sport, they want to go to that team, they want to wear what they have, they want to do all that stuff, and they do, and it's great. But if we don't have the opportunity to carry the product because it goes through fanatics or through the main overhead people, well, we don't benefit from it. And I don't care how much I can plan, how much I can tell you, and I can have all the backing in the world from Capital One and help me out to make sure that I have the money and the resources to do it. But if I can't get the product, I can't sell it. And if I can't sell it, I can't do anything with it. So help us to be able to get that information to our like you said, you have to build the bridges. You do it with the banks, different institutions, the manufacturers. If you could build bridges to the manufacturers to help the Latin community, I think it would be great.
Andy and Sylvia, do you have thoughts on ways that federal and state policymakers can partner with, city and county officials to, ensure equitable access to, for these businesses?
So I think equity equals coordination and transparency. There isn't a lot of transparency about how the Olympics, the World Cup is going to benefit our communities. There isn't a lot of transparency about, I don't want to be controversial here, but I think there's opportunities for data sharing. I think there's opportunities here for using that data and that information and these partnerships to really pinpoint who is benefiting from these big contracts, who isn't, and so that we can pivot. So again, equity equals transparency and it equals accountability. So I think data sharing as a researcher, I think it's a really important conversation to have.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And look, at the risk of being political, I would say that the federal government could start by not laying off the CDFI staff at Treasury. This is a program. The CDFIs are just an absolutely extraordinary program, have incredible bipartisan support. Even when you look at the mark legislation of BBBA, about additional investments in programs like tech and new market tax credits and others. So the will is there, but the execution is where we oftentimes fall short. And so, one, as an organization, we continue to invest a lot of time and energy working with other companies and trade associations and groups, many of which are represented here, to advocate for continued investment and execution of these programs. So I think that sort of pressure coming from our communities to ensure that government is actually looking at this in the right way and looking at it holistically is a critical piece of the puzzle. But I want to go back to something that Louis said, because this is also, whether this is something that government can enable or that we, as experts in the field, can enable, this notion of going beyond the capital and the financing to actually supporting the training and development of successful, sustainable, long-term viable businesses is absolutely critical. We have an amazing amount of expertise amassed in this room. At Capital One, we're lucky to have an amazing pool of talent that have some of the best marketers and some of the best analysts and some of the best lawyers and others in the world. And so if we're only giving capital and not giving of our expertise or our pro bono programs and our small business consulting programs, we're leaving a lot of opportunity on the table. The fact is that is where most small businesses struggle to scale, is really in sort of executing the mechanics of building and understanding how to do that. And we've heard that theme, by the way, articulated at this meeting today over and over and over again. So finding ways to actually harness the energy and the capabilities of our community to help others in our community, I think, is ultimately going to be the key to this.
Sylvia, the UCLA Latino Policy and Politics Institute recently put out new data on how Altadena and Palisades businesses were affected. And I was wondering if you have any data points or trends that can guide private sector and public sector investments in small business recovery that you could point out.
So shout out to my team because they put out the work today as I'm here, but they're doing a lot of interviews and all sorts of things today. But we were motivated to do this work. We saw some initial reports that were saying that about 1,500 businesses were impacted by the fires. That just didn't make sense. We know the landscape of our businesses, especially Latino businesses. A lot of them are home-based operations. And so this new research that's funded by Capital One, and really thank you for stepping up, because we approached a lot of funders and nobody really wanted to fund research at that time. So thank you for supporting us. But we estimate that about 10,000 businesses were directly impacted by the fires in Palisades and Altadena, and that includes the home-based businesses. Again, the numbers are much higher than some of the initial reports that we saw. 3/4 are micro businesses, so that's those are businesses with less than 10 employees, about 250K in revenue. And then micro businesses were disproportionately amongst those that were in structures that were damaged or destroyed. So there's a huge consequence there. Now we're also tracking sales, right? We've heard the stories of corporations coming in, purchasing properties, displacing businesses, displacing homeowners. We've seen very few sales, but in those few sales that we've been able to track, we do see that small businesses have been disproportionately impacted. And I'm talking about the micro businesses. I think this is going to have huge consequences for the Latino community. We know that some of the semifinal and the finals for the women's and men's soccer is going to happen for the Olympics is going to happen in the Rose Bowl. Now you have a community that's trying to grapple with still the recovery of the wildfires right after the recovery of COVID, and right now with the ice raids in LA. And now there's this opportunity that is there, but they're not able to focus their energy and their time and their talent on really taking advantage of this opportunity because you have these 10,000 businesses that are still dealing with the aftermath of the fires.
Yeah, it's tragic. Andy, Capital One has invested in community-based lenders here in Los Angeles. Why are those partnerships so vital, and how do they, expand the reach?
Yeah, as I said, you need the expertise of the local communities. You need the networks and the connections. So often, I think you can put too much distance between you and the end user in these relationships, and you do so, I think, to the detriment not only of that end user, but to the program and your ability to kind of sustain the lending over time. So our CDFI partners are absolutely critical to our mission, and we're going to continue to leverage them as that, as I said earlier, that sort of last mile provider of these services. CDFIs also have a tremendous amount of expertise in the very things that we are trying to accomplish. So, of our community benefits plan, $20 billion of that is targeted at small and micro businesses. And so, again, we could, sort of figure out ways at a national level to deploy that. And we do that. Thank you, Louis, for being a longtime customer of our card products. And we're quite proud of our reach and best-in-class ability to serve the needs of those kinds of businesses. But when you get to the complexities associated with really sort of understanding the market conditions in which a number of these businesses are operating at pre-scale levels, the CDFIs are oftentimes going to be the ones who become your Sherpas through that process and really, in many respects, can help us deploy our capital in ways that can produce the kinds of returns that allow us to do this beyond just a 5-year community benefits plan commitment. This is a business that we want to be in, and these are relationships that we want to nurture over the long haul. I oftentimes get the question, like, how is Capital One able to develop a $265 billion plan, which is the largest by a factor of 2 ever agreed to? And part of it is because this notion of low and grow, this of identifying individuals who are new to credit, businesses that are new to credit, is absolutely core to our strategy. When you oftentimes talk about sort of the origin story of Capital One, it was really focused on this notion of bringing people into the credit system who had not been part of that before. And so it's not uncommon that somebody's first experience with credit will be a Capital One credit card. Now, if they use that credit wisely, they can then have that, become the impetus to getting an auto loan, the impetus to getting a mortgage loan, the impetus then to starting a small business and getting a small business loan. So all of this is about sustaining these relationships over the long term, seeing this as an investment, not just a product and a service at a point in time.
I feel like you guys have touched on this, but if you could leave the audience with one tangible thing they could do to support Latino-owned businesses, starting tomorrow even, what do you think that would be?
From my standpoint, all the knowledge that's here needs to be put someplace where somebody can go and look at it and learn from it. You have so much to offer. You've just created so many programs that, yeah, I need something simple, ABC, if you will, that we can go there, take a look at it, and then do our job, or do a better job, if you will. You know, because when you said all the businesses that were affected and so forth, there's tons of private schools that were affected by that fire, both sides. There's a lot of schools, those kids went to private schools and so forth, they're no longer able to make it there. They, for whatever they could, they couldn't get the ride, their life has changed. You know, and so that made a big difference. Not just the businesses, but the schooling was because I deal with those schools, so I could tell you. But if you could do that, you'd have it'd just be great. It'd be great from the standpoint of, can you imagine if your son wanted to go into run a sporting goods and they could go there and get this template that tells you everything they can do and all the ifs, ands, or what's about it? It would be so cool to have that done. And I can tell from the people here, you have the power, you have the knowledge, and you have the capabilities of doing it. You just got to invest in it. But if you could invest in it, it's a wise investment, because it's the future of our sporting goods industry. That's what we need. We definitely need you to do that, because that would help us out tremendously.
Make the invisible visible. I think as Latinos right now, we're being asked to be invisible, and we need to continue to have spaces like this that are intentional, that bring our community together, that create networks. Some of the research that we've done, 50% of small business owners, women business owners, don't belong to any chamber of commerce, association, etc. The rate's even lower for Latinas, and so we have to continue to be visible, and have these spaces and create these spaces for our community.
Yeah, so selfishly, the major thing I'm trying to solve for is the conflict between tonight's gala and the Commanders on Monday Night Football. So, lifelong Latino NFL fan, I will own it. But it's like, I would say, just think long term. I mean, the notion, like, we have a kind of a saying at Capital One, which is like, no single-use plastics, right? I never want to see sort of an initiative that's a one-off or whatever that gets you a short burst of publicity or attention and then goes away, only to be reinvented in some similar form years down the road. So the notion of sort of thinking about what are the totality of benefits that could be created by the investments that LA is making right now in venues and in programming and in initiatives centered around this, unprecedented, combination of sporting events. Like, think about what it is you want to accomplish from this in the next 10 or 20 or 30 years. So, the wonderful story about MCI Center in DC was that it actually revitalized an entire neighborhood. A neighborhood called Penn Quarter in the shadow of the Capitol that was probably one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in all of Washington. It is now a thriving haven for residents and small businesses, and so has so much sort of value that's a part of that. We were able to, in DC, replicate that again with the creation of Nats Park, which, using that same playbook, was able to create an entirely new neighborhood called Navy Yard, and we hope to do it again with the Commander Stadium. This is the opportunity that LA has. Every single one of these venues should come with an ecosystem attached to it that is benefiting residents, benefiting small businesses. And so please, please, please identify those opportunities now, not something that should be left to chance.
All right, great. Well, I just want to say I'm a reporter for LA Business First, and I love speaking with small businesses and, owners who have, thoughts on what's going on in LA right now. And, if you want to find me after, maybe we can work together on something, because I would love to give more of a voice to this beautiful community. So, yeah, thank you guys so much. This is great.
Thank you all.